Alright, welcome to this beginner level introduction to getting up into a headstand. I'll show you the two most common types of headstands and how to get into them first. And then I'll talk about some do's and don'ts, some good tips, and some things to watch out for and avoid when you're doing your headstand. And then afterwards I'll give you some drills and exercises that will help make this more accessible, strength and flexibility. So let's get started with the forearm headstand first. You could have your hands clasped like this, or the palms could be open. A lot of people practice with the palms open on the back of the head. I've shifted to using palms closed. Practice with what feels best. The hands will be wrapping around the back of your head. You are pushing your head into your hands. You are pulling your hands into your head to engage muscular strength in the neck, shoulders, and arms. The weight goes on the top of the head, not the forehead, not the front of the head, but the crown of the head, which is not exactly dead center. It's maybe an inch or so back on the mound on top of your head. Everyone's head's shaped a little differently, so you're going to have to figure out what feels best, but really we're looking for nice posture in the neck. We don't want the vertebrae of the neck hinged forward or back too much. We want the bones stacked right on top of one another to distribute the weight and not injure the neck. For a lot of people, that means holding the chin in slightly more than you might think, so the back of the neck feels long. And again, it's going to stack the weight over the crown of the head. Lastly, make sure that your elbows don't wing out wide. We want the elbows to be about as wide as your shoulders. It's okay if they're a tiny bit wider, but don't go way up here. So we basically want a nice equilateral triangle from the crown of the head down to the forearms and elbows, which are bearing most of the weight when you push into this kind of headstand. Alright, let's get into it. I'm going to interlace my fingers. I'm going to set my knuckles about a ½ inch to an inch away from the baseboard, pretty close to the wall. My elbows are about as wide as my shoulders. Got the crown of my head on the ground. And now I need to get my hips stacked over my shoulders. So I walk my feet as close as I can towards the wall, getting my hips and butt over my shoulders. I'll usually take an extra breath or two here. There's many ways we can load up, but maybe the easiest way is just lifting up one leg, stack the weight over the shoulders and hips. You might be able to just lift that second leg off the ground and send it straight up. That can be kind of a hard move, so it's understandable if that doesn't happen at first. We could use a little bit of a fling with that top leg, a little hop from the bottom leg to get the hips and legs up and over. It's okay if you push into the wall. You won't break it probably. Now I'm reaching up strongly with my legs. I'm actually squeezing my butt. I'm pulling my shoulder blades against my rib cage. I'm squeezing my shoulders very strongly, pulling my hands into the back of my head, and breathing. Stay for as long as you're comfortable with it. Save some time and energy so you don't come falling down. Try to come down slow and controlled as you can, one leg at a time. Might be easier than coming down with both. When you come down, you can rest in a child's pose. I often like to come into a standing forward fold, letting the back and neck decompress. As I just gently rest my arms on my low back to let the shoulders rest in the opposite direction they're just in. So that's Shirshasana headstand using your forearms. A lot of the weight is in the elbows, but you're also pressing your hands into the ground to add stability. This next way is the tripod headstand, where your hands get to touch the ground. And you might check out being like in a little squat or malasana. You want your back of your arms to be able to touch your knees. This is what you'll be kind of starting off with probably when you load in. The weight is still on the crown of the head. You're using your hands to your elbows, and you want your hands to not be too far out. You want arms to be about as wide as your shoulders. Your forearms will be straight up and down. So again, I'm going to set my head, maybe just about an inch or so away from the baseboard. And I make that equilateral triangle between the head and hands. A good tip is you should be able to see your hands. If you can't see your hands, it might be because your hands are too far out. If you can see your hands and you feel the vision, you're probably good. Your elbows should be at about 90 degrees. That's where you are strong. Again, I'm going to get my hips over my shoulders And you might lift up the same way. Maybe you lift up a leg and then the other. A lot of people find success just pushing one knee, the arm, and then lifting up the leg. Or you can start smaller. You can stack one knee and then the other and stay in this low tripod headstand with everything hugging in. I'm scrunching everything in towards my center. It's totally fine to stay hang out here. It's quite challenging, interestingly enough, to lift up a leg. It can be quite challenging to lift up both legs. But we can work our way up to it. You can totally use the wall. Try to avoid pushing your butt into the wall. We'll talk about that later. Okay, if you do, but you're going to try and avoid that. And the shins are going to try and be straight up and down the whole time. So when you're coming down, pushing up, the shins are vertical. Try to resist flopping and hinging down like this, because it just creates less tension and stability in the back and hips. Again, once you come down, it could be one leg or two legs, down to the knees, or it could be one leg coming down. When you come down, child's pose is a nice place to rest for the neck and for your blood pressure. Shake out your wrists. The standing forward fold can be a nice place to decompress the neck and just let it dangle. Now, some people find it easier to do the tripod headstand. Some people like the forearm one. You just have to figure out which one works best for you. The tripod headstand is often easier for some people to get into, especially if it's something very new for you. It can be hard using your elbows as a point of balance and strength. The tripod headstand does take more pressure in the head and neck, though. If you don't like how much compression is happening in the neck and head, try using or getting used to that forearm headstand, and you'll be able to bear less and less weight. Especially when we're starting off with headstands, we want to take care of not compressing the neck, so you can really push your arms up and bear most or even all the weight in the forearms. Again, most of the weight's kind of towards the elbow. The whole forearm is touching the ground, and I am kind of pushing my hand into the ground to add a third point of stability, but most of the weight is there, and that kind of helps relieve some of the pressure on the neck and head. After months or years, time and time again, your bones and joints will get used to that weight and pressure, and you can bear more and more weight through the neck and head. Obviously, be nice to your spine. Now, another way we can work with compression on the neck and head is using a blanket. This is a pretty thick blanket. It's folded up all the way, and I tried to do a headstand on this. It's very wobbly and squishy, which makes it harder to balance. So, I would unfold this maybe even again, so it's no more than like a ½ inch thick. You want to find a nice balance between the padding and the hard surface where it's easier to balance. Okay? So you can do the forearm headstand on a blanket, or it could be the tripod. If I'm doing a tripod headstand, I will have my hands off the blanket where I have a little more strength and stability pushing on a hard surface, and have just the head on the blanket. If that doesn't work with how the setup is using the wall, you can have your hands on the blanket. Just know that you will have an easier time pushing to something that's hard and flat than a squishy, soft blanket. So some common mistakes. Most common mistakes or pitfalls is having the arms out too wide. It's maybe a natural reflex to have things out wide because it's a natural way to find more balance, but it decreases the strength and stamina. You can't stand here for very long, but you can stand here for very long, right? The bones are stacked, less muscular effort. You can do a headstand with your arms out wide. Like you can do that. It will probably just be harder, right? So practice having your arms about shoulder distance, and in a tripod headstand, you want your elbows to be about 90 degrees. You're really strong and sturdy there. Okay, so you don't want your hands too close here or out there. You can do it that way, but having the elbows about 90 degrees is probably going to be the easiest way. Another common misalignment or mistake is the tilting of the hips and the lower back. So we don't want to see this in our posture. And it's really common to see that in headstands and handstands. It's because you're using your booty to get your weight up and over your shoulders. And like I said, your butt might be touching the wall. Assume your back looks like this, and we want to try and get rid of that. Okay, so flexing your abs, squeezing your butt will create that posterior tilt in your back so that your booty isn't sticking out and your low back isn't curved. You can do a headstand like this. It will probably strain your low back and you'll run out of strength and energy quicker. The center of gravity is also outside the body when you are curved like this. Holding everything in, squeezing your butt, squeezing your abs, then a little bit of extension through the hips so there's no hip crease here. We'll keep a nice straight strong line, which is structurally easier to balance and maintain. So, doing some pelvic tilts beforehand can just wake up that awareness of having to tuck the tailbone a little bit, decreasing the curvature in your low back, squeezing the abs. And then the placement of the head. Spoke earlier on that. You want the weight to be on the crown of the head. Again, it's not necessarily dead center as far as front and back is concerned. Obviously left and right, it's center, but you want maybe an inch or so back. If you were to draw a plumb line, standing with really good posture, I don't have necessarily the best posture, I got a little sway back going, but we drew a line, things line up from ankle, side of the knee, to the hip, shoulder, ear hole, to the crown of your head. Some people will take their hands or their thumbs into their ears, connect their hands right above, and that's more or less the crown of the head. Again, you're going to have to kind of feel this out and play with this. If you set up a camera, your cell phone or whatever, and you videotape yourself from the side, you can see the angle of your neck. We don't want this. We don't want this. We want it straight up and down at the back of the neck long. Again, that's so that the bones of your neck are stacked really nicely. All right. Now there's lots of other extra leg variations and entries and different versions of the headstand. These are just kind of the basic beginner ways to come into it. So I won't go into more intermediate or advanced stuff. This is just getting in and out. If you can hold your headstand without using the wall for more than 7 breaths, about a minute, then start playing with leg variations, movements, different hand positions, or even switching the positions while you're there. I'll cover that in another video. Here are some tips to get you prepared for headstand. We want to get used to using the forearms and elbows. Come into a forearm plank. Get strong here and practice those pelvic tilts. If you're familiar with cat-cow, we want cat. We want posterior tilt in the pelvis, minimal curvature in the low back, and also I'm not sagging in my shoulders. I'm pushing the chest far away, really rounding the back. I want it to feel like I'm doing this. I don't want to feel like this in my headstand. Your shoulders will be much more stable and reinforcing when the shoulder blades spread away from one another, scapular protraction. So you can practice that in your forearm planks. You can even practice pushing through your hands to get used to pushing down in your headstand and being able to shift the weight. So you can do that here. You can practice having one leg in the air, maybe the opposite side arm. So I got my right leg, left arm in the air, holding that stable for a few breaths, 30 to 60 seconds, and you've got a good stable core. Obviously you're going to do that on the other side. The leg and the hip part is more important than the arm part, but you can work your way up to having so much strength and stamina in your shoulder that you can stay here for more than just a breath or two. Another way to practice that is in a down dog on your forearms, aka dolphin. I can hinge the knees a little bit. My goal is to push my chest through as far as I can so that my ears, more or less, get in between my arms. This is so that the shoulder is strong and flexible enough to be here rather than being stuck here at this angle. So in your dolphin, push through. Hinging the knees can offer the release in the back from the hamstrings to make that a little more accessible. From dolphin, you could practice lifting up a leg, feeling strong and stable here. Maybe lift up the opposite side arm to, again, force this shoulder to stay stable with all that weight and pressure. Being really smart and having the muscle memory of staying balanced and stable with the hips and legs is equally as important as having strong shoulders. So totally fine if you're just right here right now, lifting up a leg, hanging out for a few breaths. My leg is engaged. I'm squeezing my leg, my ankle, my knee, my toes. Everything's stiff and active versus being floppy. It will really help with your headstand if the legs are smart and active and engaged. Again, option 2. Work your way up to only using one arm and pushing through. Resist collapsing in that shoulder that's bearing all the weight. Okay. After pushing up a lot, you can relax by having the arms back behind you, rolling out the neck, stretching the arms back behind you. Another position we can use is down dog, and we can alternate between down dog and dolphin, and then I'll show some down dog push-ups. So in down dog, we do the same exercise as one leg up, one hand up, and pushing through the arm and shoulder. No collapsing. You want your scapula to elevate up your rib cage, not laying down in this position. If you do that on both sides, you could work on down dog push-ups, similar to pike push-ups. I'm going to turn my hands out a little bit so the index finger points forward rather than middle finger, so that when I bend my elbows, they don't wing out too much. Now first, your elbows are going to wing out a bit. That's okay, just don't overdo it, and try and hug your elbows in this way, so the motion's like this, and less like that. Okay? The serratus anterior muscle really helps pull the shoulder blades around, and when you pull things in, it makes things going up a lot easier. And it might spare your wrist a bit. So, down dog push-ups. Do these for 45 seconds or so. If flexibility and strength allows for it, you can lower all the way down and set up your tripod headstand. That's a bit more advanced, but it's a way, it's a goal to work up for. Okay? You could also just lower down to dolphin and push it back up. Right, left, left, right. Okay? If that's too easy, do it with the leg in the air. Right, left, left, right. Other leg, right, left, left, right. Okay? It's getting you really strong and stable in the hips and legs, balancing in an upside down angle, and pushing upwards. Allow us a really strong push-up position, pushing out in front of us. We do a lot of things like that. We want to be able to push up. If those are going really good, have your feet up on a wall or just like on a box or anything that elevates you up. Okay? So I could be in the L position against the wall. And these pike push-ups, just like the down dog push-ups, but harder. Okay? Work your way up to those. Those help with headstands and handstands really well. Some other things we can do is, let's do some flexibility first. Because the more you can forward fold, flexion in the hips and spine, the easier it gets to lift up and lower down in inversions. So any kind of forward fold works. We have the legs together and hinge at the hips and sideways. See my back is straight and see how far I can go. Just hinging the hips. At the very end, I can round my back to increase the stretch along the spine. But first, just work on hinging the hips. So I often exhale down, lift back up till the back feels straight, to feel this space in the front of the body. For a lot of you, that might be like up here. That's fine. Just work your way on. Inhales, lift, exhale, hinge, and eventually drape down at the bottom. Work your way to get your knees straight. It's okay if they're slightly hinged or bent at first, especially if you're really tight. You can pull on your toes, you can pull on the back of your legs. And you can do this hips open. You can do this one leg at a time. You can do it from standing. They all have different feelings and effects, but they're more or less very similar. Okay. Being able to fold forward makes it a lot easier to get your hips up and over your shoulders, which makes your legs feel light, and then they can lift up versus having to hop up or fling yourself up. If you don't have that flexibility, it takes more work. So that flexibility goes a long way. With that kind of flexibility, once you've warmed that up, take a towel, blanket, anything that slides across the ground, put it right next to your mat or wherever your hands are at, and we work with some slides. Slide out to a plank position. Make sure you got that hollow body, that posterior tilt in the pelvis, pushing your chest away. You can do some push-ups here for extra, but really what we're interested in is pulling back up. Feet as close to your hands as you can, hips up high, legs straight. I'm on my tippy toes because the goal here is to be able to hug in and get the hips up. So do 5 to 7 of those, maybe upwards of 10, and then take a break. You can do that on your hands. You can do that on your forearms. You can be in a forearm plank on forearms and elbows. Pull it up. Not so much about how far you go out, it's about that holding in and pushing the hips up. These are challenging. They're a great way to develop some core strength, to work with the flexibility, get your hips up and over. All right? Great. So use all those drills, I'm sure there's lots of others, in order to help you get into your headstand. Leave some comments or feedback on things you like, things you don't like, and things you want to see in future videos. Again, this is kind of an intro, beginner level video. If you're looking for more advanced stuff, check out some of my other videos.